Hello everyone, we're going to continue our journey through Omnisphere, seeing how we can morph and tweak our sounds. In this video, it is the turn of the ring modulation section. So first off, let's look at what ring modulation is. Let's get the words out right. So ring modulation, this basically involves taking two separate inputted signals and then we output those to something new, and the new bit is made up of the sum of differences of the two signals going in. So to calculate this new output, a ring modulator will take your typically take your input signal from any instrument and mix it with a second signal generated by an internal oscillator. Now if you've just completely lost the plot with that, have no fear, because we're going to explain this bit by bit within Omnisphere. So with Omnisphere, we take our signal of the oscillator in part A. So in part A we'll choose our oscillator. So we'll take, let's go for, we all know where I'm going to head, solid German. And we're going to go for a low pass, which Mogi, just give it a little bit of a... That's fine, we'll just drop it in an octave as well, just to give a... That's better. Right, so what we'll head now into is our ring mod page and select ring mod. Now, if you remember what I said before, we said we'll take one signal and it merges with another oscillator. Well, the main signal is this oscillator here, and your second is your modulator here. So when you look at this, you're thinking this looks all so familiar. So it does, and that's because ring modulation shares many similar concepts as frequency modulation, the FM, that we explored in the previous video, and the link to that should be scrolling across the top right about now. So the difference between the two though is that with ring modulation, the frequencies of both oscillators, the one you select in the part section in the bit before, which is this one here, and go back to ring mod, and the one you select in the part section, the one modulator in this bit here, the modulators are multiplied together. So this in turn changes the overall amplitude of the sound. So where does ring modulator get this second oscillator from? So you probably guessed it, like I said before, it is this bit here. And if we click on the sound wave in this section, you'll get the same oscillators to play with as we do in the main oscillator section. So this means you can blend all your deep analog tones on your first oscillator with your harsh, brittly, digitally tone, or something a bit in between. So let's just have a quick listen to how the modulator affects the sound. So in the first bit we've got a solid German here, so that's a deep analogy type sound, and in here we've got to modulate your sound wave. So we'll just step through a few. And if we go to digital wavetables, we'll just go for a sick pitch. So see what I mean when I was saying that you're blending the two sort of oscillators. You've got your main one and then you got your second one, which is your modulator here. So as per the main oscillator section, you've got 500 of these waveforms to play with, so you're not going to run out of any ideas anytime soon. So after this modulator section, let's just stick onto a saw wave. That's better, yeah. It's only for demonstration purposes, so you can actually hear what each one of these is really doing. So after we've looked at that, we then move on to tracking. This is this bit here. So what does this do? It disables the tracking of ring modulation across the keyboard, and it determines whether you basically track the keys that you're playing. So traditionally, ring modulators don't do this, so which is part of the character that they're implying to the sound. However, Omnisphere provides this option, which is really good. Well, for me anyway, as it gives you a more musical use of your sound. So what I mean by that is, here, everything's in tune, everything's together. If I take it off, listen to the difference. So as you can hear, this doesn't add a lot of musical character on its own. When we get a little into the realms of Doctor Who and the sound spectrum, that's for good reason, because if we could couple this with a vocoder, which sadly Omnisphere doesn't have, hint Spectrosonics, you get the famous Dalek sound from Doctor Who. You know, the one that goes exterminate, exterminate. So you can, however, control this character using the depth parameter here. So this is sort of like full on. So I can lessen the impact by just moving the depth down a bit. So the effects, it doesn't affect the main oscillator itself, the solid German. It affects the saw sound here, this modulator here. Because if I change that to noise, say, you'll start getting into the old 8-bit sort of like a Space Invaders type sound there. So I'll just go back to, where am I going? I'm going the wrong way. There we go, back to saw. Stick tracking back on. So as you can see, it does add a character to the sound, but if you're doing anything melodic, you'll want the tracking on, really. So there we go. So it's much better, and you can hear how we control the overall effects of ring modulation using just a couple of parameters here. We only just done the sort of like itchy little bit on ring modulation. So I'll just re-enable tracking, and we move to the frequency section. So this slider, this slider just the amount of overtones that are heard. So the higher value it goes on the slider, the more you're going to hear. And handling, Spectrosonics are marked out the most useful frequency ratios for us that will provide pleasing results on the ear. So, and it will just sort of make this overall sound natural. So what I mean by this is, sorry, I've got to turn the depth on, otherwise you won't hear a darn thing. Here we go. See, that sounds alright. That sounds alright. That sounds alright. And that sounds okay. It's like an octave higher. That's like an octave lower. That's so there we go. If you go in between, yeah, less useful if you ask me. So if I hold control down, just press and just click on the parameter, it sends it back to where it should be. No, it doesn't. Don't know why. It should be sending it back to 0.5. That's better. Right. Now, for demonstration, I can't even speak now. For demonstration purposes, I've left this switch at the bottom on boost, so you can hear the overall effects of the sound. But if we want to be less aggressive with what ring modulation is, we just subtle and just sort of like subtly adjust your sound. We can just flick this to normal. See, it's not as dramatic. So there we go. So we've got a couple more parameters to play with, so let's take a quick look at ring shape parameter. And this sweeps through the wavetable I was selected in the modulator section here. So depending on what we've selected on this bit, it can determine what effect the ring shape has on our sound. So you can go from quite subtle to very dramatic in just a quick slide of this, which we'll do in a minute. So for example, we're just going to take this saw wave. Oh, I'll tell you what, it'd be easy if I take a sine wave to show. It'd be more dramatic. You'll understand why when we get there. So if I move that ring shape, watch that ring shape now. See what happens? It moves and gives a bit more character. So you go in between sort of the saws. The teeth on the saw, so it's quite a dramatic difference. So if I do something now, there's another one I was going to show you. I think it was sub teeth. I think it was something like that. There was one I did saw before. Can't find it now, but we'll go with sharp teeth. So we've got this one here. Quite a dramatic difference in sound when you start playing with with that, and I'm sure it's somewhere around here somewhere. Ah, there we are, sub-teeth. This is the one I was looking at before. Watch what happens now. You dramatically alter the sound very quickly by just a quick sweep of the ring shape. So, what we do now is just move on to ring symmetry. I was going to say something else, but I completely forgotten. So, as I always say, if you've forgotten, it must have been a lie. So we move on to the ring symmetry. So this varies the span of the wavetable that we selected in this section here. So I'll just set it back to sine wave, and you'll see why in a minute. Because we can use a parameter to provide pulse width modulation. You probably see PWM on a synthesizer. And if we take this, I don't want a sine wave, I want a saw wave. Because I want to change the saw wave into a square wave. So if you watch carefully, we've now gone from a nice little jaggy to a more rounded saw. So this is a quick way of doing sort of like pulse width modulation on your sound. Just stick ring symmetry on, ring modulation, and you're away really. It's quite a little handy effect you can add to provide a bit more variety, second oscillator, without taking up any of part B, C or D. So you can probably by now start grasping, hang on a second, we've got more than, just quickly flick to this, we've got more than this oscillator here, so we've got more than 4 oscillators to play with. We've actually got all these in here to play with as well, so I can't remember how many oscillators I got, but it's got about 100 sat in there Omnisphere by the time you've gone through every section. So lastly we come to this ring sync. So ring sync is like a hard sync function that provides a throaty type of characteristic to your sound when we sweep through its range. So it's like a diphthong type sound. So historically you'd have to sacrifice one of your oscillators to provide this type of effect, so you probably lose B, C or D if Spectrasonics hadn't done what they've done. But handily, Spectrasonics has got it covered really, because it provides a hidden dedicated oscillator behind here that we can't see it, but what it does, this controls it. And hard sync was popularised in your Prophet 5s and your early Oberheim synthesizers, and it helped provide it with their iconic sound. So any changes to this sound from this parameter only affects this. It doesn't affect the solid German on here. It doesn't affect this sound. You only get an effect on this sound, as that shows. So as you can see, you can do an awful lot of tweaking with the thing. So remember, just like the FM section, all these little sliders on here can be modulated to provide a more dynamic sound. So to demonstrate this, we're going to go into a patch I made earlier. If I come out of that, and this uses all the techniques we've looked at so far. So it looks at your FM, your LFOs, and your ring modulation sections. So let's have a just quick listen to the sound. Can't get my words out tonight. Slight buzzing you hear is from the ring modulator itself. So what we have is a nice deep set bass sound that's great for those ambient electronic or cinematic type moments you're after. And it's quite a simple sound with just 2 layers. And there's an awful lot going on the modulation page, but as you can see, we've just got a couple of LFOs linked to some of the parameters for FM on ring mod, with the cutoff of oscillator 2 being controlled by my mod wheel here. So if I move my mod wheel, you can see the little white thing there. So if I play with my mod wheel, you get this. So not a lot really going on here, but it makes such a difference to the sound. And if you're wondering what the grey bit out is because that is from part B. So if you see anything greyed out in the modulation matrix here, it means it belongs to another part. So part A, those two, part B, just that one. So this is what ring modulation can do for your sound. So if you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, ding that bell in the top right corner so you'll be notified when the next video is up, and thank you for watching this far. I'll catch you in the next one when we move on to Wave Shaper, and this is quite a big section, so we'll see how we go, but we might spread it over 2 videos, but I'll aim to try and do it in one, because I'd like to sort of like look at each section in each video, in one video, in sort of like 10-15 minute slots. So thank you for watching, catch you again.